Hello. As I get older, I have more and more respect for law. We have all sorts of laws that involve the entire universe. Many of those are made, I believe, so that God would have a framework that He could make the human body so much like Himself. If you like a study of law, you will enjoy the program that we have for you today. We'll be talking about the laws of health, so we invite you to join us.
The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented. Welcome to Help Yourself to Health with Dr. Agatha Thrash of Uchee Pines Institute. And now, here's your host, Dr. Thrash.
Physiologic law is that law that guards our health, that helps us to be strong, that gives us efficiency, that makes the body function in the way that it does. Physiologic law is probably the most fascinating study I have ever made in my entire life. I love the study of health. It's a very compelling study. It's a study that when people make it, they understand the great joy that those of us who spend a lifetime in this kind of work, this is the kind of thing that we can thoroughly put ourselves into. And a study of law, the physiologic law, also helps us to be of service to others. As we learn about law, we can make it so that we can teach others how to be obedient to law. We can find ways that will make it easy for them to be obedient to law, such as finding recipes that will make it so that they can cook healthfully, and finding activities that they can do out of doors that will make them enjoy being out of doors more, and a variety of other things that can just transform life and make it so that everyone enjoys physiologic law. Now, my colleague at Uchee Pines, Rhonda Clark, is going to help me talk with you today about this thing of law.
Yes. Health
laws. Do you have an opportunity at Uchee Pines to practice the health laws?
I have learned a great deal about health laws at Uchee Pines, and am very lucky to have opportunity there to put those into practice and to see people who have worked with health laws for more years than I have being role models and encouraging to me, where I'm rather new at learning them.
You've been in the medical field for a long time. What, 20 years?
Yeah.
And with that, you have learned quite a lot of standard medicine. And now you might say that what you're doing is lifestyle medicine. So yes. Tell us something about what you have learned about laws of health.
There have been some surprises along the way. I thought as a registered nurse in my training and experience, I knew a bit about nutrition. And I have learned there's much more to nutrition, simple things, laws of nutrition that I was not familiar with. Even things as simple as fresh air, sunlight, the importance of being regularly involved in those are important for health. These were new concepts for me, and I've enjoyed learning about them.
Yes, and the laws of regularity, the laws of cleanliness, all of those kinds of things also have a powerful influence on the health that we have.
Indeed.
What else would you like to share with us?
Well, I wanted to share a little information today on a couple of particular laws of health. The first one being the law of regular exposure to sunlight. Sunlight has many healing properties. We think of it as something that enhances our mood. We love to see the springtime come and summer with the increased sunlight and warmth. We know that it helps our body produce vitamin D, an essential nutrient. And we may know that sunlight has properties. I was surprised to learn of two particular properties of sunlight that benefit our health. One has to do with the production of vitamin D. When sunlight strikes our skin, in its production of vitamin D, it uses cholesterol. As that cholesterol is utilized, then cholesterol needs to be taken from the blood to replace that which has been used in the production of vitamin D, lowering our blood cholesterol levels. An interesting study looking at cholesterol levels prior to and after a 2-hour sunbath showed that cholesterol levels in that short period of time were lowered on average 13%. It's further believed that as the blood cholesterol level lowers, eventually the atherosclerotic plaques that have accumulated in our arteries may be able to be reduced through regular sunning and regular utilization of cholesterol in the production of vitamin D. I found that to be quite interesting. Also with sunlight, it has a bactericidal activity. When exposed to our skin, it actually helps turn the oils of our skin into a substance that kills microbes of all types. When we hang our laundry out on the line, our laundry has the benefit of the sunlight and killing any bacteria that might be present. And some of you may have seen an article in a women's magazine, I guess about 2 years ago, how washing machines were found to have high colonizations of the bacteria E. coli. And this makes sense since we launder our undergarments in the washing machine. Hanging the clothes then out on the line ensure that the bacteria are completely eliminated. After the tsunami, which was around Christmas time, the end of 2004, devastation, and for many people, the inability to find pure water. It was interesting that one technique for purifying water was to place water in glass jars and expose them to sunlight for several hours. This property was enhanced if they were set on corrugated tin. The sunlight would kill pathogens in the water so that it was then safe to drink. Sunlight also has a property of stimulating our immune system so that even internally we have a better opportunity to fight off infections and illness. It increases the number of white blood cells and increases their activity level so that infections, viruses, bacteria, these things can be prevented or headed off. So I found that to be quite interesting about sunlight. And today wanted to also share with you another property of health, Dr. Thrash, that I was so interested to learn about, and that is the beneficial properties of fresh air.
Very good.
Especially fresh country air.
Mm-hmm.
Our air, which I didn't realize, has negatively and positively charged ions, and they have an effect on us. In the presence of positively charged ions, which we find indoors, especially around electrical equipment, such as televisions, computer monitors, or around air conditioning units, home heating units, these positively charged air ions lead to headache, irritability, nasal congestion, feelings of fatigue, even depression. Whereas outdoors in the fresh air, especially as we get into fresh country air, we find higher percentages of negative air ions. These have the exact opposite effect. They're calming and yet at the same time help us feel energized. They relieve nasal congestion and allergy symptoms. They relieve headache and fatigue. And interestingly, they have quite a fascinating effect on our bodies physiologically. Along our trachea and bronchi, the main tree of our respiratory system, we find cells that are lined with little tiny hairs called cilia. Their job is to help sweep debris that we inhale out of the respiratory tract, and its partner in doing this is mucus. The mucus traps things that we have breathed in, little dust particles, pollen, and the cilia work together as little brooms to sweep this substance back out so we can cough it out or swallow it and eliminate it from the respiratory tract. Normally, our cilia beat about 900 times per minute. In the presence of higher percentages of positive air ions, they only beat 600 times per minute, meaning that these substances we have inhaled are more slowly eliminated, giving greater exposure to the delicate respiratory system. Whereas in the presence of negative air ions, the cilia would beat about 1,200 times per minute and mucus flow would increase just a bit. helping keep that respiratory tract clear. This may be why negative air ions are beneficial in fighting allergy symptoms. In Philadelphia, at Northeastern Hospital, one very interesting use of negative air ions is in treating burn patients. As they receive a burn patient at Northeastern, they are treated 3 times a day, 30 minutes per session, in a room that has lots of input from negative air ions from machines that are ionizing machines. They did a study in the relief of pain for burn patients in this room and found that when treated consistently 3 times a day, 30 minutes per episode, narcotic need decreased by an amazing 85%. They regularly continue to use negative air ion treatments in their burn patients. Seeing this, their chief of surgery decided they needed to try using negative air ions in patients following surgery. They followed for 8 months patients having surgery. 137 patients agreed to be a part of this study. They only received 2 treatments in the negative air ion rooms. They would go for 30 minutes on their first day post-surgery and then again on their second day post-surgery. 79 of the 137 patients needed hardly any narcotics. Some needed none. And in the others, in fact, overall, they had about a 57% decrease in narcotic use. So it's fascinating that God has put in fresh air something so amazing and helpful to us. If you were to stand in downtown Los Angeles, for example, or any busy city, you would find in the air less than 100 little negative charged ions per cubic centimeter. In fresh country air, you would find from 20 to 50,000. But the best place to find high concentrations of negative air ions is around falling water. At Yosemite Falls, for example, they measured over 100,000 negative air ions per cubic centimeter of air. At the ocean, near moving water, even in our shower, we find negative air ions. Trees are wonderful sources, especially evergreen trees. And keeping plants in the home can help increase the number of negative air ions. So I encourage you to spend time outdoors in the fresh air and sunshine and let those wonderful laws of health, those wonderful gifts of God benefit you.
Very good. You know, as I was listening to your talking about this, I thought what powerful effects this has as an anti-aging influence, sunshine and good fresh air.
Yes.
And so when we think about aging, and everybody would like to have anti-aging factors in their lives, here are some. In fact, all the laws of health are things that we can do that can help us resist the inevitable, and that is the aging. We can slow down that aging process. We do that also by not smoking, by not drinking alcoholic drinks, by eating a proper diet. There are so many things that we can do. And Dr. Donald Miller has found quite a lot of laws of health as he has studied physiology and has studied inspired writings. And Dr. Miller, thank you for joining us today. And I'd like you to tell us about some of the things that you have found on the laws of health.
Okay. Normally when we talk about laws of health, we somehow limit them to 8 laws of health. And they're good laws of health: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trusting in the Lord. I can't say anything against these. These are vital laws of health. But if we stop at these 8 laws, we miss some very important laws. But I always, whenever I teach lifestyle principles at UT Pines or anywhere in the world, I start off with the 2 foundational health principles. If any of my students are out there, I want you to repeat them with me because it'll mean that you listen to me in class. Number 1, the life is in the blood. What you eat becomes your blood. Whatever you had for your last meal within a few hours was already circulating through your blood system. If you had good food, it follows that you probably had good blood. If you had junk food, well, I'll leave you to make a conclusion of what type of blood that you had. If you've got lots of sugar and lots of fat, you've got lots of sugar and lots of fat into your bloodstream. Now you say, well, sugar's a good thing. Yes, sugar, if it's in its unrefined state, releases slowly into the bloodstream, therefore helping you with your blood sugar situation. And so the life is in the blood. Second law, foundational law perfect health requires a perfect circulation. You can have the best blood in the world, but if you're not getting blood to an area, you've got death on the way. And so what we need to do is make sure we have good circulation. Now, within those 8 laws of health, some of those help that circulation and that good blood. Nutrition certainly is part of the good blood situation. Exercise, certainly part of the circulation part. Water, part of the circulation part. Sunshine relaxes the blood vessels, allows blood to flow in freer. That's part of the perfect circulation. So we got lots of other things that we can do. But now some other laws that I have found in searching through the literature and other things that are extremely important to us. One is something as simple as cheerfulness, the attitude that you have. There was a study that came out of Kansas State University saying that people who are extroverts, who are just seem to be happy, stay happier longer and are less sick. My mother is one of these people. I've never seen anyone more positive than my mother is. She is always happy. She's never sick. I see other people who follow maybe a better lifestyle than my mother. I don't know, but they're always gloomy people. They seem to get sick more. And so what we need to do is practice an attitude of gratitude and have happiness as part of our lifestyles. Looking for things to be happy about. I find that people who are depressed seem to focus on things that are depressing. They've got a problem in their life, they spend their whole life looking at the problem rather than looking at maybe the solution or looking beyond the problem to something else. I meet people all around the world that are having problems with their emotions, with their happiness, they're just gloomy people. And I say, well, what's the problem? They can tell me 10 things that are wrong, and I'll say, well, tell me something that is right. And if I can somehow get them to focus on something that's more positive, it's strange that their body tends to follow. Okay, so we need to have a positive outlook on life. Practice cheerfulness. Another one of the laws of health is our dress. You see it's very popular in winter times. People wearing these big down vests. They've got maybe a flannel shirt on, but they got a 4-inch thick down vest on with the flannel shirt underneath that too, which means that their trunk is warmer than their extremities, which means the blood will shunt to the trunk, congesting the trunk, which is in itself not a healthful condition. We need to have equal circulation. You see, that's going to cut down on the perfect circulation. If we have the same numbers of layers on our arms as we have on our trunk, we're going to have better circulation. So we need to have good circulation. If we have tight bands on our bodies, some people put those belts on or wear those constricting bands, that's cutting down on good circulation. We need to have clothes that are healthful, need to cover our bodies, summer and winter. It's amazing. I go down to Africa, and in the summertime when the sun's beating down, the workers are out in the fields with the long sleeves on and with something on their heads. You protect yourself from the rays of the sun. Now, sun's good, but certain times of the day it's not the best. But also you can become chilled without even knowing it on the hottest days because the evaporation of the water, we've got that latent heat of evaporation, taking off lots of heat, lowers the temperature of the extremities, trunk's heating up, congestion in the trunk. So we need to have right clothing. Another one of the laws of health that we normally don't think about is, well, let me see, I got some written down here. Cleanliness. How about cleanliness? Washing your hands, keeping your hands. The best way to get sick is to be walking around and then sit there and get something out of your eye or pick something out of your teeth or get your hands that aren't completely clean into one of the orifices that can pass some of the things that the pathogens that you might have touched into the body. Not just your own body cleanliness, which is extremely important, but the food that you eat should be clean also. You don't know what touched it or who touched it or what landed on it before you put that thing into your mouth. And so we should make sure that our food and our bodies are in a clean state. If we do not clean our bodies or our clothing, our body tends to reabsorb the toxins that is constantly throwing out. We're basically all born with 3 kidneys. We've got a left kidney, a right kidney, and our skin, which acts as an excretory organ. We need to make sure that we're cleaning this. Now, you may be in a place where you don't have that much water. I spend time in Moldova, and I learned how to take a bath in about 2 liters of water, cold water, every morning in the wintertime. You just learn how to do it with a cloth, and you give yourself a good scrubbing all over the body, and then you rinse off a little bit, and you can take quite a good bath in just a couple of quarts or a couple liters of water. A clear conscience. I read a book a few years ago by a man, a doctor, that was called The Gift of Pain, and he found one of those things that made our pain more intense and last longer, and we also find that it makes us sicker, is having a guilty conscience. So if you have anything in your mind that causes guilt, anything in your mind that you might have done sometime in the past, clean out the garbage. If you're carrying something around, get rid of it. Search your heart, or ask the Lord. I love that verse in the Bible. Search me, O Lord, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and then lead me in the way everlasting. I've done some things in my past that I was greatly regretted. And I remember years after the fact, the Lord would bring something to my mind, and I'd have to go back, years past, find that person and make it right. I remember, matter of fact, something I didn't even do wrong, but still I've got this very active guilty conscience, even when I'm not guilty. I was sitting on the back row in this class, and next to me was my friend. She was a cheerleader named Janie, and as she would take the test, she would lay each paper on the windowsill, which was fine, and I'm sitting there struggling through. This was a very hard class for me, and this was a nice spring day, and a wind blew, and one of her papers went blowing out the window. Well, I was raised to be a gentleman, and so I got up, went up, and told the teacher, didn't ask permission. I says, Janie dropped the paper out the window, second story, so I just went down the stairs, thinking nothing of it, walked out, found the piece of paper, and the way I work, I saw it laying there, I turned my head, I picked it up, and I put it behind my back. I didn't even want to catch myself doing anything wrong. Halfway up the stairs, it hit me. The teacher thinks this is a setup. The teacher thinks I am cheating. And I went back in, gave the test to Janie, she finished it, I finished it, and that bothered me then, because I thought that the teacher thought I was cheating, which I did not want and I did not do. Years and years later, we're talking about just a few years now. I'm now at UT Pines, 14 years in the Marine Corps gone by, almost 20 years at UT Pines gone by. I finally find this professor. She's now an old woman. I write her a letter and say, Dr. Meese, I want to tell you, I remember that day, and I did not do that. I did not cheat and all these different things. And I got the most wonderful letter back. Now, I've been carrying this guilt now for close to 30, 35 years. I get this wonderful letter back from her. She says, I never thought you cheated. Well, she says, the only time I was really upset with you is when I knew that you could do so much better than you were doing, and you just didn't seem to have the mindset to get involved in what you were supposed to be doing. And so when you have a guilty conscience, believe me, sometimes it's not as bad as it looks. Go back to that person. Even if they don't receive your apology, it's off of your case. If you have done something wrong to hurt somebody or something or whatever it is, you have to go back. You have to do all that you can to make it right. Sometimes it's the Holy Spirit keeping this desire on you to make cases right. And if you do not make them right, you will carry it the rest of your days. And so my recommendation is have a clear conscience. One of the law of health that we do talk about, but we don't sometimes talk about it in the paradigm of the laws of health, and that is herbs. Herbs are extremely important to us. We don't have the tree of life anymore, but I believe that God has given us the tree of life, and in tree, shrub, and flower, the herbs that surround us, we can find unbelievable healing properties. Wherever I go in whatever part of the world, I try to learn some of the indigenous herbs in that area and find ways of getting them into the people or onto the people, because from those things I find real healing. I find real protection when I'm in Africa. I eat every day. I'll eat a couple of spoonfuls. They say you only have to do it a couple of times a week, but I eat a couple of spoonfuls of papaya seeds. Very peppery tasting, but it's a great anti-malarial. I don't want to get malaria, so I eat the seeds. Nasturtium leaves will do just as well because they have exactly the same flavor, the same properties. And so look around in nature for what God has placed at our fingertips, at our disposal as common weeds. Plant tango that grows in your yard is a great herb, cell growth proliferator, good for the stomach. And so God has, Dr. Thrash, many things besides those 8 laws that we talk about. I basically see 14 laws and probably more than that.
Yes, there probably are many more than that. I always like to hear you talk about purity of life, just living a pure life.
I left that one off, but that's so important.
Why don't you say a few words about purity of life?
You know, purity of life has a lot to do with a lot of other laws of health, but it's what goes on between the ears has such a profound effect upon the health that we have. Dress can affect someone's purity of life. I think that many times men and women tempt each other by the way they dressed. We have to have pure minds. We have to be thinking the right things. And I quite frankly, I labor for the young people growing up today in this world, which just seems to be so out of control with the purity issue. Purity seems to be something that's puritanical. You know, back in the Queen Victorian age, we considered, oh, that's Victorian or puritanical. But today, by today's standards, they'd be scandalized by, I don't know, everything's changed. We need purity of life.
Yes, we do. And we can encourage one another in the upward path by being very careful about the way that we interact with others and just exactly what we do in our own lives that impacts the life of others. Consider the matter of dress from another standpoint, and that is that if we chill the skin, the macrophages, or some of those fighting soldiers that we have that are constantly on duty in the skin, if we chill those substances in the skin, then we're going to reduce the ability that the skin has to protect itself and also to put into the bloodstream those healing proteins that we so desperately need to keep the immune system functioning at its best. Now, we spoke a bit about cleanliness, but I'd like to mention a couple of things about orderliness. Orderliness helps the brain also to be orderly. If we keep our premises clean, sweet-smelling, and in order, it does wonders for keeping the brain orderly and making the immune system have a high-functioning capacity and making it so that you can put out more work. So I do recommend that not only cleanliness, but also orderliness be always thought of. Now, regularity in what you do is another important thing, that you do the same thing at the same time every day, making the work that we do on this earth much more effective in blessing others and in glorifying God. And when we come to think of it, our major reason for being is to glorify God and to bless His people.